Amidst the stunning landscapes of the Philippines, where emerald waters meet golden shores, Elena, a talented marine biologist from Manila, embarks on a journey to an isolated island to study the vibrant coral reefs. The island, known for its beauty, is also home to an intriguing legend, a mysterious love story that had once unfolded between a native fisherman, Mateo, and a foreign traveler, who disappeared without a trace. As Elena delves into her research, she encounters Luca, a brooding Italian architect who has returned to his ancestral roots in search of answers to his family's past. Their initial meetings are filled with tension and curiosity, each drawn to the other but wary of what lies beneath the surface. As days pass, the pair find themselves drawn to each other, bound by an undeniable attraction that grows with each stolen moment. They share intimate talks by moonlit beaches, exchanging dreams and desires, the rhythm of the ocean echoing the beat of their hearts. But as they uncover more about the tragic love story that once haunted the island, Elena and Luca realize they may be entwined in a destiny neither of them can escape. The passion between them ignites as they unravel secrets of love, loss, and longing, and soon they are swept away in a whirlwind of emotions, where every kiss feels like a promise, and every touch carries the weight of fate. Elena and Luca's bond deepens as their days on the island turn into nights of fiery passion. The tropical paradise becomes the backdrop to their intimate romance, where every sunset seems to set their hearts ablaze. They explore the island's hidden wonders, from secluded waterfalls to caves said to hold ancient spirits. But as their love intensifies, so do the mysteries surrounding them. One night, while exploring an old lighthouse, Luca discovers an aged journal tucked inside a hollow stone. The journal belongs to the foreign traveler from the legend, a woman who eerily resembles her. Entries recount a whirlwind romance with Mateo and ominously hint at a betrayal that led to her disappearance. The deeper Luca reads, the more he notices chilling parallels between the journal's events and their own budding relationship. Elena begins to experience vivid dreams of a life she's never lived, one where she is torn between two lovers amidst storms, secrets, and tragedy. These dreams blur into her reality, leaving her questioning whether she and Luca are living a fated cycle, doomed to repeat the past. Suspense escalates when they find Mateo's long-abandoned fishing boat washed ashore, its hull marked with carvings in a language neither can decipher. The islanders grow wary of Elena and Luca, whispering that their arrival has stirred something dormant. One elder warns Elena, love here is eternal, but eternity is not always kind. As the tension builds, Luca reveals his own dark connection to the island. His family's wealth was built on exploiting its resources decades ago. Guilt-ridden and desperate to protect Elena, he attempts to leave, but the island seems to resist, trapping them in a web of storms and uncanny occurrences. When a typhoon strikes, Elena and Luca seek refuge in an ancient cave. There, they uncover the truth. The traveler's spirit lingers, seeking justice for the betrayal that cost her life. As Elena pieces together the final moments of the tragic love triangle, she realizes the spirit wants her to make an impossible choice, sacrifice Luca to break the curse or stay bound to the island forever. Elena and Luca's love burns with an intensity neither had ever known, their passion ignited by the lush beauty of the Philippines. Each kiss feels forbidden yet fated, each touch a promise of a future they both yearn for but cannot yet see. Together, they explore the island's secrets, hidden lagoons, ancient ruins, and a towering waterfall where Elena swears she hears whispers. Kent's takes a dark turn when Elena discovers an intricately carved pendant buried in the sand near their favorite beach. The pendant bears a symbol that matches the design on Luca's family crest. Confused and intrigued, Elena confronts Luca, who reveals that his ancestors once owned this island but abandoned it after a violent uprising. The revelation shakes Elena, but Luca promises to uncover the truth and protect her at all costs. Strange events begin to unfold, the sound of footsteps in their empty villa, haunting melodies drifting on the ocean breeze, and visions of a woman in a crimson dress lingering in Elena's peripheral vision. One night, Elena wakes to find herself standing on the beach, drawn by an unseen force to the lighthouse. There, she discovers a hidden chamber filled with letters written by the mysterious traveler who vanished centuries ago. The letters reveal a chilling tale of betrayal, love, and vengeance, hinting that the island itself punishes those who tread its shores unworthy of its secrets. Luca grows distant, consumed by his own guilt and the weight of his family's dark legacy. Elena fears the island's curse is driving them apart. Her suspicions deepen when she finds Luca in the lighthouse one stormy night, clutching the same pendant she had buried. He confesses that his ancestor was the one who betrayed the traveler, leading to her tragic death. As their love teeters on the edge, the spirit of the traveler appears before Elena. She warns that the curse will repeat unless a life is given to atone for the sins of the past. Torn between her love for Luca and her own survival, Elena begins to question whether Luca's passion is genuine or if he, too, is under the island's spell. The suspense reaches a fever pitch as the island itself seems to conspire against them. Storms rage, paths shift, and the sea grows treacherous. In a heart-stopping climax, Elena is forced to choose between saving Luca or breaking free of the island forever. But in a final twist, Luca sacrifices himself to save her, vanishing into the waves as the curse claims its due. Heartbroken and forever changed, Elena leaves the island, her love for Luca immortalized in her soul. Yet, as she looks back at the fading shoreline, she sees a figure standing by the lighthouse, a man with piercing eyes and a pendant glinting in the sun. The island seemed alive, its vibrant beauty concealing whispers of an ancient, forbidden tale. For Elena and Luca, what began as a chance meeting blossomed into an all-consuming love, passionate, reckless, and utterly undeniable. Their days were filled with stolen kisses under the shade of palm trees. Their nights consumed by a fire that rivaled the tropical sunsets. Yet, beneath their romance lurked a shadow neither could ignore. Elena's discovery of the pendant sparked something deep within her, a connection she couldn't explain. The dreams followed, vivid, haunting visions of herself in another life, standing at the edge of a cliff with a man who looked like Luca but wasn't him. She felt his touch, his betrayal, and the fall that ended her life. When she awoke, the sensation lingered, as if the island itself had etched the memories into her soul. Meanwhile, Luca unearthed a journal in the ruins of an old church, written by his ancestor, Lorenzo, who had ruled the island centuries ago. Lorenzo's words revealed a torrid affair with a woman named Amara, a native healer whose love for him had been her undoing. Falsely accused of sorcery, Amara was sentenced to death, cursing Lorenzo and his descendants with her dying breath. Love will bind you, but fate will tear you apart. Elena and Luca's love began to mirror the past in ways that defied coincidence. The pendant, the visions, and the islanders' cryptic warnings all pointed to one thing: they were living the echoes of a cursed love end in tragedy unless they could break the cycle. As the suspense mounted, the island storms grew fiercer, the ocean raging as if it, too, sought to reclaim them. One fateful night, Elena and Luca ventured to the cliff from her dreams, determined to uncover the truth. There, they encountered Amara's spirit, who revealed the ultimate twist: the curse could only be undone through an act of true sacrifice. Luca, consumed by guilt for his family's sins, offered his life to free Elena. But Elena refused to let history repeat itself. Instead, she proposed a different kind of sacrifice, one born of love, not death. She pleaded with Amara to see that their love was different, pure, and worthy of redemption. In a heart-wrenching climax, Elena and Luca stood at the edge of the cliff as the storm raged around them. They held hands and leapt into the ocean together, a leap of faith that defied fate and embraced their love. The waters swallowed them, and for a moment, it seemed as though the curse had won. But when they awoke, they were on the shore, the storm gone, the pendant shattered beside them. The curse had been broken, not through sacrifice, but through their unwavering love. Elena and Luca left the island, their bond stronger than ever, their hearts unburdened by the past. Yet, as they sailed away, they looked back to see a figure standing on the cliff, a woman in a flowing crimson dress. Her sorrowful gaze now softened with gratitude. The island wasn't just alive, it was seductive, its lush forests and moonlit beaches a perfect mirror of the desire that flared between Elena and Luca. Their love burned hotter with each passing day, their passion blooming in secret coves and beneath starlit skies. Every glance between them held unspoken promises, every touch igniting a hunger neither could resist. but as their intimacy deepened, so did the island's mysteries. Elena's visions became more vivid, her dreams blending sensuality. She saw herself as Amara, her body intertwined with Lorenzo's in a love so intense it felt like fire. But always, the visions ended in betrayal, Amara pushed to her death, her scream echoing in Elena's soul. The journal Luca found revealed a chilling truth: Lorenzo's passion for Amara was tainted by his own ambition. Fearing the islander's wrath for loving a native, he had condemned Amara to protect himself. The betrayal wasn't just an act of cowardice, it was the birth of the curse that now bound Elena and Luca. Determined to escape their fated tragedy, Elena and Luca's love took on a desperate, fevered edge. Their nights together became more daring, their passion mingling with a yearning to defy the forces pulling them apart. By candlelight in the ruins of the old church, they shared whispered vows, their bodies and souls entwined in a declaration of love that defied time itself, but the island wasn't ready to let them go. One stormy night, Amara's spirit appeared before them, her presence both alluring and terrifying. She offered Elena a choice: leave Luca and break the curse, or stay and watch him die as Lorenzo once did. Elena's heart shattered. But Luca, overwhelmed by guilt for his ancestors' sins, made his own decision. "If one life can free us, then let it be mine," he told Elena. "But promise me you'll live, and you'll remember this, us." As the storm raged, Elena refused to accept Luca's sacrifice. Instead, she turned to Amara, begging for another way. In a desperate act of passion and defiance, Elena and Luca stood together, offering their love as a tribute. "We will not repeat the sins of the past," Elena said. "If love created this curse, then let love end it." Amara's expression softened, the centuries of pain in her eyes giving way to understanding. In a final test, she demanded that they prove their love, fully and completely. What followed was an act of pure intimacy, an offering of passion that made a connection more profound than mere desire. Their love burned so brightly it seemed to light the storm itself. When the storm finally calmed, Elena and Luca awoke on the beach, the pendant shattered beside them, its curse lifted. The island had released them, their love proving strong enough to redeem the sins of the past. Their passion, sacrifice, and unwavering devotion had rewritten their fate. And as they sailed away from the island, they knew their love had become a legend, a story of redemption and erotic passion that would endure long after the waves had erased their footprints from the shore. Elena and Luca's love had always been a spark in the dark, but now, it was a wildfire consuming them both. The island, with its intoxicating beauty, had drawn them together with its sultry nights and shimmering lagoons, each moment spent between them more intimate and irresistible than the last. Every touch was electrifying, every kiss was a promise, but the island carried more than just desire, it carried a curse that twisted their passion into something darker. Elena had begun to feel it, a pull deeper than lust, a supernatural connection to the island that both thrilled and terrified her. It was as if the very air they breathed was charged with the energy of those who had lived and died on the island long before them. And when they made love, the passion between them felt eternal. As though their bodies and souls were rewriting the laws of time. But one night, after a particularly heated encounter beneath the full moon, Elena awoke to a chilling presence in their villa. Her skin was still flushed from their lovemaking, the taste of Luca still on her lips, but something was wrong. The air was thick with tension, and a whispering wind caressed her skin. She looked over at Luca, still asleep beside her, his body warm and inviting. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that the island was watching them, waiting for something. In the days that followed, Elena's visions became more intense. She saw herself in a past life, caught in the throes of a forbidden love with a man who looked like Luca, but who was doomed to betray her. Their bodies entwined in passion, they shared moments so raw, so sensual, it felt as though she could taste the bitterness of their undoing. In the visions, she could feel her heart break with each whispered lie, each stolen touch that led her to the edge of a cliff, where the earth crumbled beneath her. Fighting to escape the grip of these haunted dreams, Elena confronted Luca. She confessed the truth, the island, the visions, the curse that had tied them together in a story of love and betrayal stretching back centuries. Luca's eyes darkened with guilt as he revealed his own discoveries. His ancestor, Lorenzo, had been the one to betray the woman who had loved him, and the island had never forgiven him. In a desperate bid to break the curse, he had sought out the island's dark forces, hoping to free Elena from the fate that bound them, but the island wasn't finished with them yet. One night, as the winds howled and the waves crashed violently against the shore, Amara's spirit appeared before them. The beautiful, vengeful woman from the past, whose love had been betrayed by Lorenzo, offered Elena and Luca one final choice: to live out the curse again, with all its passion and pain, or to make the ultimate sacrifice to free themselves from the island's hold forever. As Amara's ethereal form glided towards them, her eyes burned with a sorrowful intensity. She offered them a twisted ultimatum: one must sacrifice their heart's desire to free the other from the island's curse. Elena and Luca, both devastated by the weight of this revelation, struggled with the decision. Their love had brought them to the peak of desire and joy, but the cost of defying the island was more than either was willing to pay. Yet, in the heat of the swirling chaos of emotions, they realized that the island's power could not break their connection. In an act of pure love and sacrifice, Elena pulled Luca to her, kissing him with such intensity it felt as though their bodies were about to merge into one. Her hand slid down his body, feeling the heat of their shared passion, and then she whispered, "We will end this together, no matter what it takes." They knew that to break the curse, they needed to face it head-on, to burn away the past with a love so raw and real that nothing, not even death, could take it from them. Their lovemaking became a ritual, an offering to the island itself, as Elena and Luca explored the depths of their passion in a final, desperate act to break free. Their bodies, slick with sweat, intertwined in a frenzy of heat and desire. Every touch, every kiss was an exorcism, a breaking of the chains that bound them. The island trembled around them, its spirits writhing in the intensity of their love, and in the final moments, as they reached the peak of ecstasy, the storm around them subsided, the island fell silent. Elena and Luca stood, panting, drenched in sweat, their love still burning brightly, but now freed from the grip of the past. The curse was broken. In the aftermath, the island, once a place of torment and passion, began to heal. The spirits of the past faded, their bitterness dissolved by the power of love's redemption. Elena and Luca, their bond stronger than ever, walked away from the island, their hearts entwined forever. The curse broke and the storm subsided. Elena and Luca believed they had conquered the island's darkness. They left the ruins hand in hand, thinking their love had triumphed over the centuries-old curse. The air felt lighter, the oppressive presence of the island seemingly gone, and the waves lapped softly against the shore. But they underestimated the island's true nature, a malevolent force that thrived not just on love but on betrayal and blood. The first sign came that evening as they returned to their villa. Elena found herself drawn to the bathroom mirror, her reflection warping into a distorted version of herself, eyes hollow, mouth smeared with blood. She staggered back, her scream echoing through the villa. Luca rushed to her, only to see the mirror return to normal, showing only Elena's pale, trembling form. "I thought it was over," Elena whispered, her voice shaking. "I thought we were free." But they weren't free. The curse wasn't just about love, it was about sacrifice. And the island demanded more than passion, it wanted blood. That night, the villa's power went out, plunging them into darkness. Luca lit a candle, his hands trembling, as the oppressive silence grew heavier. A knock sounded at the door, a slow, deliberate thud. When Luca opened it, no one was there. But on the ground lay a blood-soaked machete, its blade glinting in the flickering candlelight. "What the hell is this?" Luca growled, his voice echoing in the silence. From the shadows, a low, guttural laugh emerged. The voice was familiar, too familiar. It was Lorenzo's voice, cruel and mocking. "Did you think you could escape so easily?" The villa became a trap, its walls twisting and shifting, separating Elena and Luca. As they tried to find each other, the true horror began. Shadowy figures emerged, their forms grotesque and mutilated, wielding rusted blades and serrated tools. They were the island's victims, eternally bound, and they weren't just there to haunt, They were there to kill. Elena stumbled into the kitchen, her heart pounding as she found herself face to face with one of the spirits. It was Amara, her eyes wild with rage, holding a butcher's knife. "You think love saves you?" Amara hissed, lunging forward. Elena ducked just in time, the blade slamming into the countertop. Luca wasn't faring any better. Trapped in the villa's main hall, he fought off one of the shadowy figures, using the blood-soaked machete he'd found. But each swing seemed to summon more of them, their laughter echoing around him. His hands were slick with sweat and blood, his muscles burning as he fought for his life. As the night wore on, the villa became a blood-soaked nightmare. The spirits weren't just killing, they were forcing Elena and Luca to confront their darkest fears and betrayals. Luca saw visions of himself abandoning Elena, leaving her to die just as Lorenzo had abandoned Amara. Elena, in turn, saw herself pushing Luca away, her hands stained with his blood. The final confrontation came in the villa's basement, where the walls dripped with crimson and the air reeked of decay. Amara and Lorenzo's spirits loomed over Elena and Luca, their faces twisted with anger and grief. "If you want freedom," Amara snarled, "you must finish what was started." The island demanded one last act of betrayal. One of them had to die. Elena and Luca stood facing each other, bloodied and exhausted, their love now a fragile thread. The machete lay between them, gleaming in the dim light. "I won't do it," Luca said, his voice trembling. "I'd rather die than hurt you." "And I won't lose you," Elena replied, tears streaming down her face, but the spirits weren't willing to wait. Amara lunged at Luca, her knife aimed at his heart. Without thinking, Elena grabbed the machete and swung. The blade sank into Amara's chest, her scream piercing the air as she disintegrated and shrieked in unison, their forms dissolving as the villa began to collapse around them. Elena and Luca ran, the ground shaking beneath their feet, until they burst out into the open air. Behind them, the villa crumbled into rubble, swallowed by the earth, but freedom came at a cost. Though they escaped the island, they were forever haunted by what they had done, and what they had survived. The bond between them, once their strength, became a source of tension and fear. Every shadow, every creak of the floorboards, reminded them of the island's horrors. Their love had saved them, but it had also destroyed them, leaving scars that would never heal. Elena and Luca fled the collapsing villa. But the horror followed them. The island wasn't done feeding. They stumbled through the jungle, their clothes torn, their bodies scratched and bloodied by the grasping branches. The whispers in the wind grew louder, more guttural, as if the spirits of the island were hunting them. The path seemed endless, the jungle closing in on them, until they emerged onto a desolate beach. Relief was short-lived. The horizon was shrouded in mist, and the sea, once calm, now churned with an unnatural fury. The boat they had arrived on was gone, replaced by the wreckage of a much older vessel, its wood blackened and splintered. "Luca, this can't be real," Elena whispered, clutching his arm. Her voice trembled. But her grip was firm, her nails digging into his skin. "It's the island," Luca said, his voice low. "It's still playing with us." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man, gaunt and pale, his face twisted in a permanent grimace of pain. His clothes were tattered, soaked with old blood. In his hands, he held a rusted machete. "You thought you could leave?" he hissed. His voice was sharp, cutting through the crashing waves. "No one leaves." Not without pain could react, the man lunged at them. Luca barely managed to grab a piece of driftwood, blocking the machete's swing. The force sent him stumbling, but he didn't fall. Elena screamed, scrambling backward as the man turned his attention to her. "Run!" Luca shouted, swinging the driftwood again. "Get out of here!" But there was nowhere to run. The jungle was alive with movement, shadows shifting among the trees. More figures emerged, their faces mutilated, their bodies adorned with scars and blood. Each carried a weapon, blades, chains, tools of torture. The couple was surrounded. The captors dragged Elena and Luca to a makeshift camp deep in the jungle, a grotesque assembly of bones and rotting wood. Torches flickered, casting eerie shadows over the blood-soaked ground. A massive wooden table sat at the center, its surface scarred with deep grooves and dark stains. They were separated, bound with coarse ropes. Luca was thrown to the ground, forced to watch as Elena was tied to the table. The leader of the group, a woman with hollow eyes and a voice like grinding metal, stepped forward. "The island demands sacrifice," she said, running a finger along a blade. "You brought love here, and love is a lie. We will show you the truth." Elena struggled, her screams muffled by a rag stuffed in her mouth. The leader raised the blade, carving a shallow line down Elena's arm. Blood pooled, dripping onto the ground. The crowd around them roared in approval, their voices a cacophony of madness. Luca thrashed against his bindings, his wrists raw and bleeding. "Let her go. You want me? Take me." The leader turned to him, her smile cold. "You both will pay. But she will pay first." What followed was a night of unspeakable horror. The captors toyed with them, drawing out their pain. Elena endured the worst, her body a canvas for their cruelty. Luca was forced to watch, his cries of rage and despair torment. Elena's eyes met Luca's. In that moment, despite the agony, there was a shared resolve, a silent promise. They wouldn't let the island win. When the captors grew complacent, drunk on their own violence, Luca seized his chance. Using a jagged rock, he sawed through the ropes binding his wrists. His hands were slick with blood, his vision blurred with rage and desperation. With a sudden burst of strength, he lunged at the nearest captor, grabbing their machete. The blade sank into the man's chest, a sickening crunch that silenced the crowd. Chaos erupted. Luca fought with the fury of a man who had nothing left to lose. Each swing of the machete was fueled by the horrors he had witnessed. The pain he had endured. Blood sprayed, screams filled the air, and bodies fell. Elena, weak but determined, managed to free herself. She grabbed a fallen weapon, a rusted knife, and joined Luca. Together, they carved a path through the captors, their love now a weapon as sharp and unrelenting as the blades in their hands. As dawn broke, the couple found themselves back on the beach, their bodies covered in blood, most of it not their own. The leader stood before them, her hollow eyes filled with fury. "You think this is over?" she spat. "The island will never let you go." Luca stepped forward, raising the machete. "We'll see about that." With a single, decisive swing, he ended her life. The jungle fell silent, the oppressive presence lifting. For the first time, the air felt clean, the sky clear. They found a hidden boat among the wreckage, its engine miraculously intact. As they sailed away, the island disappeared into the mist, its curse broken, or so they hoped. Elena and Luca returned to the mainland, their bodies scarred, their souls forever changed. They had survived the island, but the memories lingered, haunting their dreams, creeping in, forged in blood and pain, endured. But in the quiet moments, when the world was still, they could feel the island's eyes watching, waiting for the day it would call them back. Elena and Luca may have escaped the villa, but the island's curse still loomed. As their stolen boat cut through the turbulent waves, a thick fog engulfed them, chilling the air and obscuring the horizon. The engine sputtered, and then died, leaving them adrift in the silent, oppressive mist. "Something's wrong," Elena whispered, clutching her arms. "It doesn't want us to leave." Luca tried restarting the engine, his hands trembling with frustration. "We're not going back, Elena. I don't care what it takes." But the island wasn't done with them. Hours later, they found themselves inexplicably back on the island, their boat washed ashore. The sand was cold, wet, and stained with dark streaks of blood. The villa's ruins loomed in the distance, shrouded in shadow. "Luca, this can't be real," Elena said, her voice breaking. "We left. We were free." Luca grabbed her hand, his grip firm. "We'll find another way. Stay close to me." As they moved inland, the jungle seemed alive, whispering their names and shifting unnaturally. The deeper they went, the more twisted the landscape became. The trees bled sap as red as blood, and bones littered the ground. Suddenly, they heard it, a faint, wet scraping sound. It grew louder, closer, until a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a man, his skin flayed and his limbs mangled, crawling toward them with a rusted hook in his hand. His face was a mask of agony and rage. "Help me," he rasped, his voice wet and guttural. "Please, kill me." Before they could react, he lunged at them, swinging his hook wildly. Luca tackled him, grabbing a rock and smashing it against the man's head. The man crumpled, but his blood seemed to seep into the earth, and the jungle groaned as if in pain. "That wasn't human," Elena said. Luca stood, panting, his hands slick with blood. "I don't think anything here is." Night fell quickly, the darkness suffocating. They stumbled upon an abandoned camp, its fire pit cold and surrounded by rusted tools. A journal lay nearby, its pages filled with frantic scribbles. "The island demands blood. Sacrifice is the only way to survive. They come at night. They always come." Before they could process the words, a scream pierced the air, high-pitched and unrelenting. It came from the jungle, growing louder, closer. "Elena, run!" Luca shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the camp center, but they didn't get far. Figures emerged from the shadows, their bodies mutilated and their faces twisted into grotesque masks of flesh. They carried crude weapons, machetes, spikes, and chains. The leader stepped forward, a tall woman whose face was stitched into a permanent smile. She held a serrated blade, its edge dripping with something dark and viscous. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. "But since you did, you'll entertain us." They were overpowered, dragged to a clearing where a grotesque altar stood, a slab of stone drenched in dried blood. Luca was tied to a wooden post, his arms stretched painfully above his head. Elena was strapped to the altar, her screams muffled by a cloth gag. The leader ran her blade along Elena's cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. "Love makes you weak," she said. "It blinds you to the truth." Luca thrashed against his bindings. "Don't touch her. I'll kill you." The leader smiled, her head tilting unnaturally. "Oh, you'll try. But first, let's see how much you can take." The torture began. One of the captors dragged a rusted chain across Luca's back, the links tearing into his skin. Blood dripped down his sides, pooling at his feet. Another used a hooked instrument to carve shallow cuts into Elena's arms, her muffled with them, savoring their pain. The leader whispered cruel taunts into Luca's ear, detailing what she planned to do to Elena. "You'll watch her die, piece by piece. And then, you'll beg for death." But the couple refused to break. Through the pain, their eyes met, and in that shared glance, they found strength. As the captors prepared to deal the final blow, Elena whispered something under her breath. The leader leaned in, curious. "What was that, darling?" she asked mockingly. Elena's eyes blazed with defiance. "You forgot one thing." The leader frowned. "And what's that?" Elena grinned, blood staining her teeth. "Love makes us dangerous." With a sudden burst of strength, Elena freed one hand from her bindings, grabbing a sharp shard of stone hidden beneath the altar. She drove it into the leader's throat, blood spurting as the woman staggered back, gurgling. Chaos erupted. Luca, fueled by adrenaline and rage, snapped the post he was tied to, using the splintered wood as a weapon. He drove it into the chest of one captor, then swung it wildly, forcing the others to back away. Elena joined him, grabbing a fallen machete. Together, they fought with feral intensity, cutting down their tormentors one by one. Only the leader remained, her wounds already beginning to heal. She stood, laughing, her voice a twisted melody. "You can't kill me," she said. "The island won't let you." "We'll see about that," Luca said, grabbing a torch from the campfire. He lit the altar ablaze, the flames spreading quickly. The leader screamed, her body consumed by fire. The jungle itself seemed to writhe and scream, the island's curse unraveling. as the flames died down, the air grew still. The whispers stopped, and the oppressive weight lifted. Elena and Luca, bloodied but alive, stood together, watching the fire burn. Is it over? Elena asked. Luca wrapped an arm around her, his grip firm. I don't know. But whatever happens, another boat and left the island, but the horrors stayed with them. In the quiet of the night, they still heard the screams. And sometimes, in the shadows, they saw the leader's stitched smile, waiting for the day they'd return. The air was thick with the smell of blood and ash. Luca and Elena, battered and trembling, stared at the remains of the burning altar. Their victory against the sadistic leader of the island cult seemed definitive, but the land beneath their feet pulsed with an ominous energy. This isn't over, Luca said, his voice low, as if the island itself could hear him. Elena, clutching the machete she'd stolen from one of their captors, nodded. We need to find a way off this cursed place, for good this time. They trudged through the jungle, the oppressive darkness closing in around them. Every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig sent their hearts racing. Blood dripped from their wounds, leaving a trail behind them, but they were too focused on survival to notice. Suddenly, a chilling scream pierced the silence. It wasn't human, it was guttural, echoing through the trees like the island itself was howling in anger. What was that? Elena whispered, clutching Luca's arm. Before he could answer, the ground beneath them gave way, sending them tumbling into a cavern. They landed hard on damp, rocky ground, their torches flickering weakly. The cavern was a shrine to death. Skulls lined the walls. And chains hung from the ceiling, their ends stained with rust and blood. A massive stone slab sat in the center, its surface covered in dark stains and crude carvings. This must be where it all started, Luca said, his voice echoing in the cavern. Elena approached the slab, her eyes narrowing. Look at the carvings. They're instructions. The carvings depicted a horrifying ritual, sacrifices made to bind the island's curse to its leaders. The final image showed a heart, beating, pulsing, being consumed by fire. His face turned pale. The leader wasn't the real source of this. It's the island itself. The only way to break the curse is to destroy whatever's keeping it alive. Luca pointed to a dark alcove at the far end of the cavern. If it's anywhere, it's in there. They ventured into the alcove, their torches casting long shadows on the walls. At its center was a grotesque, pulsating mass, a heart, unnaturally large, suspended by blackened vines. It throbbed rhythmically, each beat shaking the ground beneath their feet. We have to destroy it, Luca said, raising his torch, but as they stepped closer, the cavern erupted with noise. The cult's victims, now reanimated and grotesquely twisted, emerged from the shadows. Their eyes glowed with malice, and their movements were jerky but purposeful. The fight was brutal. Luca and Elena fought like cornered animals, their weapons cutting through decayed flesh and brittle bone. The reanimated victims were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Luca was tackled to the ground, a sharp bone stabbing into his shoulder. He screamed in pain, but managed to grab a fallen chain, using it to crush his attacker's skull. Elena, cornered by three of the creatures, swung her machete wildly, severing limbs and heads. Blood and gore coated her, but she didn't stop. Luca. She screamed. We can't keep this up. Luca, his face contorted with pain, looked at the pulsating heart. We don't have to. He grabbed a chain, looping it around the heart and tying the other end to a boulder. With all his strength, he yanked the chain, pulling the heart down. As it hit the ground, the cavern began to shake violently. The creatures froze, their bodies disintegrating into ash. The heart pulsed faster, its beats deafening. Elena ran to Luca's side. We have to get out of here. But Luca shook his head. If we don't finish this, it'll start all over again. Elena's eyes filled with tears. There has to be another way. He cupped her face, his bloodied hands trembling. This is the only way. Go, Elena. Live. Before she could protest, he grabbed her machete and drove it into the heart. The cavern collapsed in a torrent of fire and rock. Elena, dragged out by the force of the explosion, stumbled into the jungle, her vision blurry and her body weak. She turned to see the ground where the cavern had been glowing with an intense, otherworldly light before finally going dark. The jungle fell silent, and for the first time, the oppressive weight of the island lifted. Elena collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Luca was gone, but his sacrifice had freed the island, and her. She made her way to the shore, where a small boat awaited her, as if summoned by the island's final act of redemption. As she sailed away, the island disappeared into the horizon, leaving behind only memories of love, pain, and sacrifice. Years later, Elena sat on a quiet beach, staring at the waves. The scars on her body had faded, but the ones on her soul remained. She touched the locket around her neck, inside of which was a photo of Luca. "I'll never forget you," she whispered, but as the wind picked up, she swore she heard his voice in the waves, reminder that their love had defied time, fate, and even death.